Sports Den rides again. Welcome to the football preview show as we kick off the 21st season of Sports Den. He's Matt Dean. I'm Bill Hupp. Matt, how was your summer?
Great. I had a lot of time to relax, enjoy the weather, heating up, and man, I'm pumped for high school football. I don't know about you.
As we all are for sure. The weather still hot as you expect in the early part of September, late part of August, but high school football season, the practices are underway, things are going on, and a lot of changes in the air this year with high school football.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about it. Of course, we got two programs, Blaine and Centennial, who are part of the 6A class, biggest division of football in the state. We saw that kind of maroon and gold experiment the last couple years where Centennial and Blaine were in that group that were among the gold, kind of the historically successful programs. The maroon, a little bit less so. You'd see a little bit of kind of overlap between those two pods, but it was mostly the gold teams sticking it out and facing each other week in and week out. We're going to see a lot more regional rivalries, so we'll see Blaine and Centennial playing a lot more of the teams here in kind of the North Metro area. I think there was a lot of positives to take away from it, but I think it's going to be fun to see a lot more schools, programs you're used to around the area to kind of revive some of those rivalries. We'll talk a little bit about it as we get into the schedules for these two teams. And then big things coming to 5A too, with kind of the reorganization of the districts as well.
Of course, in Spring Lake Park in 5A, and they have a completely reworked schedule with some pretty tough games, but we'll get to the Panthers in a second. Let's start with Centennial. This is a team that finished 8-3 last year, really ended the season with some good momentum, made the state tournament before falling to Rosemount. What do you expect to see from, what did you think of the Cougars season last year, and what do you expect to see from them this year?
Yeah, really good resume. 5th trip to state in school history for the Cougars. And really, I think a deceptive 3-loss season where, remember, all 3 of the losses came to state tournament teams, other teams that also made the field. A 1-point loss to Stillwater in week 1, fell by a touchdown at Maple Grove in week 4 when they were missing a couple of very key juniors, now seniors, that we'll talk about in a little bit. And then, no shame, kind of a 27-0 bad taste in your mouth loss against Rosemount in the state quarterfinals at Stillwater. But Bill, I know we were talking about it the other day. Rosemount were the team that, of course, stormed to the Prep Bowl championship game. And that Irish team were just really well built for cold outdoor football. I think that was a tough matchup for Centennial in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, no question. But this is a Centennial team that has become accustomed to winning 6, 7, 8 games a year and being in the Class 6A mix every single season. Now, Matt, you had a chance to go out to Circle Pines and watch the Cougars practice a little last week.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway that we came away with from that practice was confidence. Mike Diggins, 14th-year head coach, is really pumped up about this team. Yes, there are some losses. Reese Littlefield was 2nd in the state in tackles as a senior last year. Lance Nielsen, terrific player. They're going to be missing, but it's still going to be a really tough defensive unit. We talked a little bit with Marcus Whiting, who's coming back, 9 sacks last year. They're going to be bringing back 6 starters on both sides of the ball. We chatted with the quarterback, Dalen Cummings, who missed some time, including that big Maple Grove game where the Cougars lost by a touchdown. Maverick Harper was electric the first 2 games of the year. He was missing for that Maple Grove game as well. So we heard a little bit from Cummings. He is excited for that game against the Crimson. Of course, we'll get into the schedule, but Centennial are going to get a couple of rematches with those 2 teams that met in the Prep Bowl last year. So a lot of confidence, and rightfully so, with how much that Centennial has coming back as they look to make a run to U.S. Bank Stadium this year. So let's take a look at what we heard from the QB, Dalen Cummings, from Coach Diggins, and our sound from Centennial football practice last week.
The Centennial Cougars were 8 points away from having an undefeated regular season in 2022. One of their close losses came in the season opener, in which junior Maverick Harper rushed for 181 yards and a pair of touchdowns. This year's Cougars believe if Maverick is healthy, Centennial's rushing attack will be a force to be reckoned with.
Maverick's been working his butt off in the offseason. You know, he's healthy now, and I'm expecting big things from him, you know. He's fast, he's physical, he can do it all.
He is the key to us. He's one of the better running backs in the state that nobody mentions. He's got explosive speed, great vision, and really good quickness. He's a bigger kid. He weighs 195 pounds now. He's a lot bigger than he was last year, so we expect a lot out of him this year.
I'm ready to see him lead the state in rushing yards, honestly. I knew he could do it last year. Got that ankle injury that ended it soon, but he's going to get the full season this year, and he's going to lead the state.
Maverick isn't the only horse the red and white have in the backfield. Dalen Cummings is back for his third year at quarterback, and that experience could propel Centennial to the next level.
I think with Dalen being a 3-year returning quarterback, he is our strength. I mean, he's been there before. He's a 3-year starter on varsity. We're to a point where he makes a lot of the calls on the line now for us offensively, so it's a big help for us.
The past 2 years under my belt, definitely more experience, get a better feel for the speed and the pace of the game. So coming out here, being a lot more physical and knowing what I'm doing every single play, knowing what everyone's doing, be a big help.
A great rushing tandem in the backfield, plus one of the state's top defenses. Expectations and excitement is high for the Cougars this season.
We have a lot of kids coming back, which is a nice thing for us. But we do have to fill some spots. We lost Reese Littlefield, which was an all-state kid and probably the best linebacker we've ever had at Centennial, which is big because we have had a lot of good linebackers. So we have to fill some spots too. And
I'm really pumped for this year. We got a lot of guys coming back. A lot of the seniors, we've been playing together since we were real little, so we got a lot of chemistry. And then some of the younger guys coming up, they're going to be a big part of the team, filling those spots that we lost last year. But I'm excited for this team. Our goals, we're looking win games, hopefully make it to state this year. I think we got a good shot at that. And for me personally, my goal is just lead this team as best as I can.
I think our biggest strength is going to be our defense once again. Our offense, we're going to be good, but our defense is going to be best in the state, I'd say. This team's got a lot of guys coming back. We're ready to fill those spots that we lost. We're ready to go farther than we were last year and do it undefeated.
As we take a look at the Centennial 2023 football schedule, they start with a couple of home games before probably their toughest stretch of the season, visiting Maple Grove and STMA. The most intriguing game from my eyes, Matt, on this schedule is the game at home against Rosemount to close out the regular season. Mike Diggins not afraid to schedule the tough opponents to prepare his team for the playoffs.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one. It's definitely one that the Cougars have keyed in on heading into the season. You're going to see Rosemount and go to Maple Grove, the two teams that played in the 6A Prep Bowl last year. So that'll be two huge games coming up in the Cougars schedule. Obviously, a rivalry game against Blaine. We'll do a North Metro TV. I would say the Maple Grove, the Rosemount games are huge. All the other teams you see on the schedule did not win a playoff game last year. So this is a gettable schedule for Centennial, and they feel like they are going to contend right there with Maple Grove and Rosemount, who were the champs and the runners-up last year.
And the key will largely be health. It sounds simplistic to say, but can they keep Cummings and Harper, their two main skill position guys, healthy the entire season? If they can, and the defense gels like Coach Diggins thinks it will, this Centennial team has a chance to, like we said, really make a run deep in Class 6A.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, the biggest thing for those of that list you rattled off, having Dalen Cummings a third-year starting quarterback. That's so valuable in high school football, having a guy that knows the offense, knows his guys. Going to have a lot of weapons and a good defense, we think, on the other side, too. So a lot of optimism for the Centennial team and no reason to think that they won't be a contender to get to US Bank Stadium and make a run to a potential state semifinal this year.
Well, speaking of contenders, we'll turn our attention to the contender in Class 5A, Spring Lake Park, when we return on the Sports Den Football Preview Show.
We in Spring Lake Park believe in building a strong and safe community. Our city moves onward and upward while holding on to our traditions and roots. We maintain a small town feel even though we are nestled next to the big city. We believe in being good neighbors and building community with safe neighborhoods. And we believe in citizenry and promote being active both physically and socially. We in Spring Lake Park love to play and believe in having an abundance of parks, playgrounds, and green space so that everyone can take a moment to enjoy the natural beauty that surrounds us. We believe in educating our children well, so we use the most advanced tools of learning to ensure continued success and bright futures. We promote athletics to keep our children fit and healthy and build a sense of teamwork. We in Spring Lake Park believe in providing a good, stable home for industry and small business to thrive. We have a large variety of successful businesses that have found continued success and benefit from excellent visibility off Highway 65. And a large customer base, as we are located only 15 minutes outside of downtown Minneapolis. Come visit us in Spring Lake Park, and you will see why we believe our city is one of a kind.
Back here on the Sports Den Football Preview Show, Bill Hupp and Matt Dean previewing our 3 area teams as they get set to kick off the 2023 football season. And now, Matt, we turn our attention to Class 5A and Spring Lake Park. The Panthers last year going 7-3, losing some tough games in the regular season to the likes of Chan and Matamidi before eventually falling 1 game short of the state tournament to Rogers, a team that eventually lost to Mankato West in the state semifinals. So another successful years for Spring Lake Park and the Panthers last year, and they did it as they always do, with experience, running, and defense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Again, just really solid option running football that we're used to seeing. That's been the Panthers' calling card the last 15, 20 years or so under John Stewart, and then he was the assistant under Jeff Schlief. So they still really stay true to those principles. It almost got them to their first state tournament since 2019. And really solid year overall. Going to be interesting to see kind of how Spring Lake Park turns things over this year. They had a 2-year starter at quarterback, Braden Talso, pretty much losing 8 or 9 starters on both sides of the ball, so it was a really senior-laden team. Last year, had a lot of success. I think Spring Lake Park, though, they've got guys coming up through the system who know how to play SLP style of football, so it'll be fun to see how they adjust this year.
And one of those guys is sophomore Lamari Brown. He burst onto the scene last year unexpectedly as a freshman, really came out of nowhere and took the reins of that starting running back job. He's back for his sophomore season. What will we see out of him in his sophomore campaign?
Yeah, 439 yards, 5 touchdowns last year, right? Sky's the limit on that, as you figure he's going to be a guy getting the bulk of the carries, because remember Talso and then Jackson Smith, who was an awesome 2-way player for the Panthers, were both seniors, so you figure that volume's going to increase. They're going to have an entirely new front of 5 brand new offensive linemen. Connor Larson is coming back, but it sounds like we were at practice. He's injured to start the year. So that'll be contingent on kind of how that offensive line can gel and open up those holes for Brown. You don't hear about a lot of freshmen who take over and get that many carries. 3rd leading rusher in the team last year. Sky's the limit for this guy. Yeah,
and they'll have a really tough schedule. Gone are the Robbinsdale schools, and they have a schedule that includes visits to Moorhead, Andover, and that Rogers Royals team that they lost to last year. Matt, you had a chance to go out to practice at Spring Lake Park earlier this week.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We went on kind of the tail end of kind of that second last full week of practice before the year started. They were having their county fair day, some kind of fun and games, basically to end the week. That was a blast. We loved talking with John Stewart, and a lot of positive energy where, right, it's a lot of turnover, a lot of new faces, but John Stewart was really high on the energy. He said usually his teams kind of are down for a day. He has to kind of kick them into gear. He said that has not been a concern at all with Spring Lake Park in the preparations for the season. They've been up, getting after it every day, and they're excited for that 3-hour bus ride to open up the season going to Moorhead.
Yeah, 6 p.m. game, which is unusual. Let's see what Coach Stewart and the boys had to say when we visited with them earlier this week.
Spring Lake Park football opened up the season on the road on Thursday night in Moorhead. The Panthers are coming off a 7-3 season in which they came a win shy of their first state tournament berth since 2019. Panthers coming into the year have a lot of new faces on both sides of the ball. Just 6 regular starters returning from the team that last year made a run to the Section 6 5A title game. And although there's been lots of turnover on the roster, there is plenty of enthusiasm and energy heading into the final week of practice practice as the Panthers prepare for that Thursday night opener.
We are going to be, we're going with inexperienced right now. Just we had a big senior class that graduated a bunch of kids, and so we'll have some newcomers in roles. But I think one of the most refreshing and fun things off season, even through the first week, is they are willing to work.
One of the biggest things with the young faces here is I think our offensive line. I mean, the only one that came back was me, and I'm sidelined for a couple weeks here. I think they've been working their butts off every day in practice, trying to stay low, get off the ball, and lots of improvement to happen. I think a lot of people would be surprised with the young faces that we bring in.
I'm really excited, especially about the younger guys who are going to step up and about the senior leaders that we have on the team. We had a ton of energy in the off season, especially in like winter weight room and in the spring, both in the weight room and in other sports. We had a lot of kids putting in the work and stepping up, and I think that we got all the seniors on our team want to be leaders.
So a lot of the younger guys, they bring something new to the team, kind of like a spark this year. And then for a leadership role, like not just me, but a lot of the seniors, there's a lot less seniors this year than there was last year. So I'd say it's nice to kind of bring those young guys, into their manhood. We get to teach them how to play football, teach them how to be men, and it's really fun to do that.
On the offensive side of the football, the Panthers graduate 2-year starting senior Braden Talso from last year's club. So there's a new competition at quarterback heading into the year. On opening day, they'll have an entirely new offensive line with the injury to Connor Larson, who will be out for at least the first 5 weeks of the season. But the Panthers hope to lean on plenty of running back depth that figures to be a strength of the team going into this year.
The backfield is probably our strength. We've got Lamari Brown as a sophomore that played quite a bit last year. He's an electric running back.
They can go out there, they can hold the ball 30 times a game, whatever. And just knowing that we can have those guys that were back there with the big roles, they can carry the team and kind of lead the offense on their back with the young faces that are out there.
As we take a look at the Spring Lake Park 2023 football schedule, and look at those 3 first road games at Moorhead, at Rogers, and at Andover. So Spring Lake Park, we'll kind of know a little bit more about the Panthers after those 5 games. But you had another game that you wanted to highlight on the schedule.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you're a Spring Lake Park fan, you're looking at a big one with Irondale in week 6, 7 p.m. kickoff on October the 6th. Battle for the block. The Panthers have won 8 straight against Irondale, beat them in the playoffs and the regular season last year. It's one of 3 rematches that the Panthers will have in the schedule. Irondale, fun team. They've got 2 of the top 25 senior recruits in the state, including a big offensive lineman, Emerson Mandel, who's committed to play for PJ Fleck and the Gophers next year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Irondale has some talent, and they'll present a stiff challenge, as will the Matabidi Zephyrs when Spring Lake Park hosts them on North Metro TV to close out the regular season.
And of course, Rogers in week 4, section title game rematch on the road for Spring Lake Park. So that one's going to be a blast as well, too. Man, this is a tough schedule. Spring Lake Park, they signed up for the Maroon Division. I thought that was supposed to be the easy slate this year in the 5A reorganization. Not the case, it seems like.
Not
for
the case.
Panthers.
They're not having to travel as far outside of the Moorhead game, but they're still playing a really loaded schedule. And Matt, I can't let this go. Emerson Mandel is going to Wisconsin.
Oh, he is?
Yes.
Okay.
And you're a Badger alum.
You teed me up for that. I thought Mandel was a Minnesota guy.
No,
You're right.
he's a Wisconsin commit, arguably the top player in the state, and that's someone that Spring Lake Park will have to contend with moving forward. We still have 1 team left to go. Don't go anywhere. We'll talk Blaine next on the Sports Den Spring Football Preview Show. Back here on the Sports Den Football Preview Show, Bill Hupp, Matt Dean, as we are 2 teams down. We've got 1 to go, and that's the Blaine Bengals. And Matt, this is the team that finished 4-5 last year. Very up and down year, some really close losses, including in the first round where they were upset at home by a pretty talented Edina team that gave Centennial a pretty good game in the round after the first round. So this Blaine Bengals team, it lost a few key components, but it is returning a lot. But last year's team really had a lot to offer, and they didn't struggle to score points.
Yeah, 3 of the 5 losses, you mentioned the Edina game, 3 of the 5 on their schedule were by a touchdown or less, including that playoff loss to Edina. You look at the losses, the 2 big ones were against Centennial at home. We did that game, Bill. Remember, Frank Daniels, the starting quarterback, was knocked out before halftime. So I definitely feel like the Bengals feel like they can make that game a lot closer in a rivalry game this year at Wayzata, another team who are knocking on the door of the state tournament. So no shame in that as well, too. And going to see a new offensive line, a lot of changes on the defense. On my board, I've got 10 of their 11 starters from last year gone on that side of the ball. But what they are going to be ripe with is skill position experience. Daniels at quarterback, Michael Douglas at running back. So definitely Blaine are going to be looking to march their way to Wall Street. That's my favorite Michael Douglas.
Good one, nice. Was waiting for one of those references. But yeah, ultimately they lost leading tackler Henry Morris. They lost Zach Schusted, who kind of did everything for them. They even lost kicker Kendall Stadden, who was so money and so clutch for them, especially in her junior season. So they do have a lot to replace, but it always helps when you return your starting quarterback and running back for their senior seasons.
Yeah, and you're going to watch that push and pull throughout the year. We talked with Frank Daniels at practice, Michael Douglas, the talented running back. Blaine, of all of our 3 schools, and really among the state, they're one of the best balanced offenses in terms of when they go to the pass, when they go to the run. So they're able to kind of hit you a lot of different ways. Blaine definitely are feeling confident with some of that returning experience they have at the skill positions, as we heard from Mike Law, the 5th-year head coach, and some of the Bengals when we were out of practice last week.
Very excited to continue and develop what we started last year and carried on to this year. It's very fun to spread the ball around, and find the spots where the defense is insufficient and just attack them.
We have a ton of guys in that skill group that are returning and have some comfortability in our system, and guys that have proven that they've been able to be successful on Friday nights, and also have some guys that are either juniors or seniors that are stepping into roles and have done a really nice job. We talk about it as a skill group all the time. I predominantly meet with those guys as well as the offensive line, but we know those offensive linemen are going to be a huge key for our success, and kind of as they go, we'll go, and we've been happy with their development as well.
You know, I think we have a great group of guys here. I think we're going to do pretty well this year. We've taken a big step in this offseason, and I think we'll have a good shot of going far.
We're going to have new guys, but it's going to be fun to see them step up into huge places. I think we're just going to have a great season.
And let's take a look at the Blaine football schedule for 2023. And the Bengals will play, as Matt mentioned, 3 state tournament teams in Maple Grove, Shakopee, and Centennial. A couple of those on the road. And yeah, it's a pretty loaded schedule for sure. But what stands out to you looking at that schedule, Matt?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, those 3 state tournament teams you mentioned, and Centennial, the big rivalry game, which will be the first road contest for the Bengals this year. They were shut out by the Cougars in red last year. Back-to-back wins now for Centennial. That doesn't happen a lot in the Blaine Centennial rivalry. It is the first time in 7 years that either team has won 2 games in a row. So the Bengals are betting on that it will not be 3 in a row as they look to get a little revenge against the Cougars this year. That'll be a fun one that, of course, we'll be covering on North Metro TV.
Yeah, for me, the game that really sticks out is that STMA opener. They hosted the Knights last year, and the Bengals rolled over them 24-6. It's an STMA program that is perennially really good. So it'll be interesting to see how the Bengals compete against STMA in the first game of the season, and we'll have that for you on North Metro TV, of course. And Matt, it sets up for what should be a really interesting season. I mean, we have 2 teams in Spring Lake Park and Blaine that are replacing a lot of players, so they could go either way. We'll see how it shapes out, especially with rather difficult schedules. And then you have a Centennial team that has some really experienced senior players who should be impactful, and if they can stay healthy, like we said, we think they can make some noise in 6A.
Yeah, Centennial, I think, to me, it's the most exciting, just given what they have coming back. Like you mentioned, they're turning over a little bit more. They're going to be a team that I know a lot of people are picking to maybe knock on the door, if not get to US Bank Stadium and beyond. So they'll be fun to watch. Spring Lake Park, we know they're going to field a solid football team out there on both sides of the ball. It's kids that come up to that system. They've been playing, modifications of kind of that same core principles with the option offense for a long time out in SLP. So you give them the benefit of the doubt. And Blaine, they're going to be replacing some, but as we talked about, when you have an experienced quarterback returning for a second year, you have a solid bell cow running back, you got a few other pieces here and there, some weapons, a couple of senior wide receivers, they can be a really difficult matchup for teams with the different looks they can give you on offense. So I think there's a lot to be excited about, truly, for all three of our area schools here at North Metro TV.
Yeah, it should be pretty interesting, and of course we'll have many of those games for you right here on North Metro TV all season long. And if you miss the game, you can always watch the highlights on Monday's edition of Sports Den. So that'll do it for the Sports Den football preview show. For Director Ted LaRue, Mike Peterson, Alex Battles, my partner Matt Dean, I'm Bill Huff, signing off here on our 21st season of Sports Den.